today we have a very, very special University Religious Forum presentation. A week ago this time, I was literally in India with 10 students, not 2, there were 10 of them. In fact, I was trying to do the math in my head. I think we were in Hyderabad about now, if I'm not mistaken, because India, of course, is ahead of us, not behind us. So it would be Friday. I guess it would be Friday early morning. I guess we'd be asleep. Oh, I know what we were doing. We were on a train, asleep, in between Rajahmundry and Hyderabad, India, about this time last week. So I asked some of the students who accompanied campus ministry on our 24th mission trip since I started directing the ministry in 1997. This trip, as I said, to India. I asked some of the students to join me today to share their experiences with the trip and talk about the highlights. Hopefully as you listen to them, you'll see the profound impact that the Lord created in their lives as a result of their service, but also the way that He blessed the people in India through them. So we've got some pictures that we'll show you as well. But first, let me introduce the students that are here with me today. Immediately to my left is Bryce Heber. Bryce is actually the student group president here at IPFW of campus ministry this year. And by the way, let me point out he happens to be wearing the team T-shirt that the team wore in India. In fact, why don't you stand up and turn around so they can see the back of it? It says "Love India," and then this language on the back of this T-shirt is Telugu. That's the language they speak in that portion of India. Well, let me say this, not everyone speaks it, but the official language of India is Hindi, but then every region has its own special language or dialect, and where we go, it's Telugu. It's just a beautiful script. And this is John 4:8, 1 John 4:8, which says God is love. And I'm paraphrasing, he who knows God knows love, or something to that effect. So 1 John 4:8, thank you very much. And then next to Bryce is Cole Smith. Now Bryce is a senior, and you're studying mechanical engineering, and Cole is in engineering as well, right? IT, okay. And you are a junior. And then next to Cole is John Imhoff, and you are studying what, John?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, you're not, that's right.
Yeah.
But John hopes to actually go into full-time missionary work. And I think, don't you have your eyes set on Moody?
Yeah.
Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, hopefully in the fall.
Yeah.
So I think he's made application and he's waiting to hear whether he's accepted or not. Then on the far end, Tiffany Sealer. Tiffany, what year of school are you in?
Technically, I'm a sophomore, but it's my first year of college.
Okay, because you accumulated a lot of college credit in high school. Great. And what are you studying, Tiffany?
Human services, to be a physical therapist.
Okay. The team was heavily balanced in the male direction. We had 8 male members of the team and only 3 females. You'll see that in the pictures as we go along here. But I'm really, really grateful that these students agreed to join us today. We're all still, I don't know if they are, but I am still trying to reacclimate physiologically to being 10.5 time zones away from where we were a week ago. So if I'm standing up here talking, I don't think I'll fall asleep, but I have been falling asleep at the oddest times during the day so far. But so if anybody falls asleep next to you, just please poke them for the next hour. Why don't we just maybe go down the line here? And my first question would be, why did you decide to go on this trip in the first place? Maybe you could each talk about that for a couple of minutes just to get your feet wet in terms of talking. So Bryce, why don't you start?
So coming to India this time was actually
my second time going. And the first time, I had gone on missions trips before throughout high school. Really enjoyed the service aspect of it, and really the great benefit that not only I got, but that I saw other people get as well. So coming into college, I saw the opportunity to go out of the country for the first time, and India no less. So I totally took advantage of it. It was an incredible time, an incredible experience, and I learned a lot about myself, and really opened my eyes to the world, especially the level of poverty. You can see it on TV and in photos, but seeing it in real life just really shook me. It was a big, really shock to me, and something that I really had to kind of wrestle with myself. You know, like, we're so blessed over here, and yet they're struggling over there. And so that really changed my perspective of the world and the blessings that I've been given here. And so that really sparked and ignited my passion for Asia and the difference in culture. And I actually went this past summer to Korea. Then coming to this missions trip, the reason why I went again was one of the biggest ones was I made some great relationships the first time with Pastor Prasad's family, the person that we got to stay with. And I really wanted to catch back up with him, and as well with his kids, and continue that relationship, as well as I really wanted to go back and continue doing the work in the ministry that we had done before, because of how big of an impact it made on me, and how big of an impact I saw Gateway Ministries, which is the ministry that Pastor Prasad is doing, the impact he was doing there, and I wanted to continue to be a part of it.
And I had never been on a mission trip before, so this was my first experience on a mission trip, and I felt that God was really calling me to go experience a different culture and experience a different people group, and I just decided that this was something I needed to do and something I wanted to do, and just something that I felt God was calling me to do.
I decided to go on the mission trip because, well, lately for the past 2 years, I've been feeling God call me to go into the mission field, like Ben said, and it was a great opportunity for me to go overseas to India. I have a passion for learning about different cultures and different ways of life other than my own, and yeah, basically.
For me, looking back, I honestly don't really know what the biggest reason was I chose, because I'm not a huge fan of heat, and it was like 110 there. I'm a really picky eater, and I don't like spicy food, and that's all they eat is spicy food. So it wasn't really like the perfect match for me, but when I first heard about the trip at Campus Ministry, the first night I went home and I called my mom, and I was like, I really want to go to India, and we weren't really sure how to do that, like pay for it and everything, and I was just talking to a family member of mine about it, and they offered to pay for the entire trip in full. And so when I heard that, I felt like that's was God was calling me, and he was making it happen for me. And so that was, I think, the biggest step to making me go.
So I probably should, in the way of background, Bryce mentioned that he has been before. We've actually I've taken 4 teams now to India. The first time we went was in the summer of 2008. We took 2 trips in the summertime, and now the second time in March. And I'll tell you, if you're ever going to India, don't go in the summertime, because Tiffany thought it was hot this time, but she should have gone in the summertime, because the average then is between 120 and 130 degrees, and it's just it'll wipe you out. So, but the reason we actually began to take teams to India was that our friend Nigel James, who happens to be a missionary in Wales, and the story of how I met him is too long to tell now, but he introduced us to Pastor Prasad, who Bryce mentioned. His initials are VSC Prasad. All of the VSC part is too long to articulate as to what his full name is. We just call him Prasad. And his wife Suni and their extended family are all in ministry in a town called Rajahmundry, India. I say town, it's 3 million people. But they consider that to be a relatively medium-sized city in India. It's in the state of Andhra Pradesh. I don't know if you're familiar with Indian geography, but India is divided into states. And Rajahmundry is relatively near Hyderabad. It's in the southeast part of the country. And Pastor Prasad oversees about 100 village churches in and around Rajahmundry. As Bryce said, collectively they're known as Gateway Ministry. He literally meets with these pastors once a month, goes to different sections, and pastors his own church. His father pastors a church, his brother pastors a church, and these pastors will get together for prayer and fellowship. And in fact, whenever we go, we always host a pastors' conference so the pastors can meet together, and I'll do some teaching, or Nigel will do some teaching if he's with us. And then they also have a Christian school where English is taught, and it's for lower caste children. So it's a unique opportunity, because a lot of these children wouldn't be able to go to an English school, wouldn't be able to afford it, wouldn't actually be accepted. And then, of course, they're also taught Christianity at the school. Although not all of the teachers at the school are Christian, it is a Christian school where Prasad's wife Suni is the head mistress, and a number of his family members are teachers and in administration in the school as well. And then they run an abandoned children's home at the school. I would call it an orphanage, but in some of the children's cases, their parents are still alive. They just can't afford to take care of them. So they actually bring their children to this place and leave them, which is a little sad in one sense, but in another sense, it's a blessing that these children can be taken care of the way they are in this home. So that's a little bit of the background. Now I'm going to ask the students, and we don't need to go in any particular order, but maybe you could talk about, I'm sure that everybody had expectations about what India was like before they went. What's one thing that really surprised you about India that you weren't anticipating?
So for me, being the second time, I had a lot of expectations, right? I mean, because I had gone through a missions trip, I've been there before, so I was really trying my best to put those expectations aside so that, you know, when stuff didn't go the way they planned, because it never goes the way you expect, then you're not disappointed. And I would say one of the expectations that I was delightfully surprised that it wasn't true was the roads themselves. Usually we're traveling off into rural areas a lot of times, and it's long, usually like an hour trip to get to a church, and you know, a lot of the roads, a lot of the infrastructure is rough, so you're constantly bobbing up and down in a car. But this time, the roads were actually, a lot of them were redone. They just recently got repaved, and that sort of thing, which I was told that during the time since I've been gone, they actually had a big festival where they have, I guess every 12 years, they have people come and they bathe in the river as part of a ceremony that they do. And because of that, all these people are traveling to, you know, this small town of Rajahmundry to bathe in the river. And so they've actually redid all the roads for that festival. And the only time that I really remember us having a rough time getting somewhere was because they were redoing another road itself. So I guess one of the biggest expectations that I was blown away by was the speed at which they're building their infrastructure. Even though they're quite a bit behind in a lot of sense, they're still growing and they're still developing, and it seems to be coming along at a pretty fast rate, which was interesting.
One thing that I was blown away by was when we got to Prasad's house. I couldn't believe how welcomed we were. Like within, I'd say 2 days, I felt extremely at home at his house, and they welcomed us in so generously, and it was great.
For me, my biggest surprise was I wasn't aware that it used to be a British colony, so I wasn't aware of how much English I was going to see. A lot of people still don't speak English there, but I thought that I was barely ever going to be able to speak to people in English since I can't speak their language. I thought there'd be a really big language barrier. And so I was surprised with how much, even on the signs, a lot of the times the signs will be in the Telugu and then they will be in the English, so I could read a lot of what things were so I could know where we were going or know where we were at, and I didn't expect that at all.
I was surprised very much by the difference in the poverty and the wealth, or the poverty versus the wealth. There's a lot of, you could tell, well-to-do people there, but there's also just immensely poor people that do not have homes to live in. They're living in tents or shacks, but then there's people who are living in multi-story buildings right next to it, and I was just very surprised at how that was.
One of the main reasons that we take these trips, and I always tell students this, is that we want them to learn that the body of Christ is global and that not everybody loves God and worships God the same way, and that's part of the beauty of the diversity that the Lord has created in this world. So these students had the opportunity to experience Christianity and church life Indian style. We went to 7 different church services in 5 days. And generally what they did was a couple of students would share some faith story, something God had been showing them in their lives, or a favorite scripture passage, and they'd share for 3 or 4 minutes, and then the team would sing. In fact, the team learned a Telugu song that is one of our favorites. We've sung it before on past trips, but they learned to sing it in Telugu, much to the delight of the Indian people in the churches. And then they would perform a skit without words so that it didn't have to be interpreted, and then Bryce would explain the skit to the people. And then we would always pray our way out of the church afterwards because, as I'm sure they'll talk about, there's a real passion for prayer in the Indian church, and it's very humbling, but they want people from the United States to pray for them. And so what we would do is the door of the church was always in the back, and the students were always in the front. So to get to the back, you have to work your way through the congregation, and they would lay hands on people and pray for them all the way out to the back door. So I say all of that to ask the next question, and that is, what struck you about the Christian church in India? What was significant to you? What did you learn about Christianity, perhaps from experiencing it in a different culture? What did you notice about the way people worship God there that was meaningful to you? Anything along those lines?
Go ahead. All right. One of the things, or one of the really cool things, is one of the churches we were going to. We went to a church in the morning, and then it was like around afternoon. We were heading to another church, and we actually showed up there. I think it was 3 hours late, and they were still there. They were still waiting for us, and we actually got to continue through the service. But I mean, that's just a drastic contrast to what you would see. I mean, here let's look at our students here at IPFW. If a professor is, more than 15 minutes late, the class is gone. But yet here in India, like, they really want to go through the church service. They really, obviously, that time that they waited shows that they really value their service or their time that they get to spend worshiping God. So that was really good to see that, and really a great reminder of the importance of worshiping God and coming together as a church. So.
What really spoke to me was their intensity in prayer and worship, and that was amazing because they take it so seriously, and it's in such high importance to them. But here it's, it's serious, but it's not like how it was in India. It was amazing to see.
Kind of going off of what Ben said, he talked about how they really value prayer, and that was something I was super surprised by, because I think we value prayer here, but there they just, that's something that they just take to a whole nother level, which is so great to see. And as we would pray, when we were leaving the churches, I noticed that they would be so grateful when you prayed for them. They were like the happiest person in the world that you just prayed for them. And what's interesting is they have no idea what you're saying. You're praying for them in English, and they don't have a single clue what you're saying, yet they're so grateful just to even know that you prayed, even though they don't even know what you prayed for. And so that was so like heartwarming to see.
When it came to their worship, they have a very different style, and I really enjoyed like how they sang and the way they did that. They also sang very loudly, like with everything they had. They were just shouting really praises, and they're not the best singers either. Which is funny, but they don't care. They just want to sing praise to God, and I thought that was really admirable and awesome.
What were some of the prayer requests? I mean, occasionally the students would have a translator with them, and so people could say, "Would you pray for?" Do you remember what you seemed to be praying for most of the time when you knew what it was that you were being asked to pray?
It was usually, sorry, you can go ahead.
I remember there was a lady who there were a few ladies who patted their legs, they had something wrong with their leg, and then there was also a few mentally disabled children, things like that.
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing. It was usually healing.
Yeah.
And then school was another one
Yeah.
too. A lot of parents wanted
Yeah.
you to pray for their child for their
Yeah.
schooling.
That's what I was. My experience has been there. Another thing that I've noticed about Indian culture is that education seems to be so much more important. I mean, it's important to us, but and parenthetically, what I've discovered is that teachers are more valued in Indian culture than they are in the United States. In fact, my doctor here in Fort Wayne is an Indian man, and whenever I go see him, it's funny because you know how we reverence doctors. We revere doctors a lot of the times, and you're forced to wait on them, you know, to go in and see them and so forth. But when I walk into his office, he starts talking about being a professor and how great that is and how much he admires. And I said, well, the only problem is that you're getting paid a lot more than I am, so obviously you appreciate me more than my own culture does. But yeah, I've noticed that parents want prayer for their children and their education a great deal. Well, I'm going to encourage the people who are here with us today to be thinking of some questions to ask. But right now, what I'm going to do is ask the students. Now, they're filming this, and I'm sure that what we're going to do probably is cut to the slideshow on the screen at home. So it won't be awful if you guys turn around, but don't turn around completely. Just kind of position your chair so you can see what's on the screen. And then maybe you can just offer comments about the pictures as we scroll through them, and I'll hit the I'll hit the advance button when nobody's talking about that picture anymore. Okay. So anyone want to tell us about this shot?
So this is two famous bridges. It's actually like if you type up the city Rajahmundry, these actually pop up right away in images actually because they're iconic, and they were built by the British. The one on the left is no longer in use, but the right is. And then if you can kind of see in the far off distance on the left, you'll see a double-decker bridge. Now that might be really hard to see, but just believe me, it's there. And on the lower part of the bridge is an area for cars to go, and then the upper part is for a train, and that's actually where our train went across the river over to Hyderabad.
And it's the second longest bridge in Asia.
Yeah, there's the longest ones in China.
And as Bryce mentioned earlier, there's festivals about the rivers because in the Hindu religion, rivers are sacred. So they honor a different river every 12 years, and then they repair roads so that people can come and travel on those roads in that region of India. So, okay, the advance is not working. Let's see what the problem is here. There we go. What is this?
This is the Rajahmundry airport. Right after we landed in Rajahmundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we first visited Rajahmundry in 2008, I'm not kidding you, there was a barn. That was it. And I thought this was my first time there, and I thought, holy cow, what am I getting myself into when a barn is their airport? But now they have a nice modern glass airport here. So the students and I are very tired at this point.
And they're actually building a new airport right next to it.
Yeah.
Because now that Hyderabad and Rajahmundry actually have been separated in state. They used to be one state. And because of that separation, now Rajahmundry is kind of becoming I don't think it's the capital, but it's
they're building
becoming
a
more
new
of a
capital.
hub.
Yeah.
It's becoming more of a big city for the Andhra Pradesh now, the city. So.
Okay. What do we have here? Why did you take this picture, John?
I just thought it was cool. You'd see all kinds of things going down the road, and that was one of them. I think there was actually a guy sitting on top of there.
Yeah, they sit on top of
Yeah,
them.
the people would sit on top of these hay wagons.
Yeah.
So Rajahmundry is a very agricultural area where we were not a lot of industry, but a lot of agriculture. This is Pastor Prasad standing next to Bryce, and as I said, he was our host. He studied to be an engineer. He didn't want to be a pastor. He kind of rebelled against his father. His father wanted him to follow in his footsteps and become a pastor. And Prasad resisted as long as he could, but then God finally got to him, and now he's in the ministry. And he actually has visited Fort Wayne now 3 times. So, okay.
So this is actually another picture of us by the river, and on the far left is Suni, and then right next to her is Prince, or his actual name is Hanish, but they use Prince to help us out.
And Suni is Prasad's wife and also the headmistress of the school. And you can see the team flanking them there.
This is Sagar, and he was one of my favorite people at the house because he is like the most genuine guy I've ever met in my entire life. He will do anything for you. He was so sweet to always open doors, and he just really welcomed us like we were his own family and looked out for especially the girls a lot, like we were like his little sisters, or he was taking care of us, and so he was a really sweet guy.
And he just actually finished school not too long ago to become a pastor. And so he doesn't have a church right now, but he does lead some youth services, which we got to be a part of, which was an awesome experience to see him kind of preaching, and also he translated for us so that we could share some of our testimonies with the kids. But he's currently trying to look for the funds to have his own church. And then he's also having a kid. May 12th is the date. He's going to have his first child. So it's exciting stuff.
And the story is actually too long to tell, but back in 2007, he was electrocuted to death. And we believe that God raised him from the dead. So he's got a very interesting testimony. He showed the students the scar from that event. And like I said, it would take about 15-20 minutes to tell the whole story, so I won't do that. But he is a real testimony to God's love and power. And so this is Cole and Prince again on top of the house where we were living, on the rooftop there, which is the coolest part to be in the house. And this is, what is this now?
This is the sunset.
Sunset.
Sunset in Rajahmundry.
And the interesting thing is that building on the right there, when I went, it was just sticks and basically like the frame of the concrete, and now it's a brand new apartment. So cool stuff.
Okay.
That's us at it's Prasad's church, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his church, and so this is us right after we got done doing a service and doing our testimonies and sharing and singing and all, skits and all that. And now we're kind of relaxing, talking with some of the students there, They were also letting us try food. You guys remember what it was called? It was like
Guav.
guav. It was delicious. I loved it. But they were just sharing some food and we were relaxing a little bit. So.
That's SUNY in the center of the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was another church. Just, I think either before or after. I'm not really sure when.
I think it was after.
After.
Yeah.
All the kids would come up to us and
They all wanted to
say
take
hello,
selfies.
say selfie, and then take a selfie with us. It was very cool. Yeah,
This is after. This is another church after. This is Rob. He was all the kids want to take pictures with him. It was funny.
Yeah, Rob was pretty popular. This church actually was one of the newest, nicest churches that we went to. But on the first floor was she would be considered a widow, right?
Yeah.
Her husband had passed away, and he was the pastor, and now she is the pastor of this church that is on the second floor of her house. And that's where this church service is. It's on the second floor above her house where she lives, and she has 2 sons. And it was really interesting, her story. She had lost her husband, and then one of the people from the UK that knew Nigel came over and really related to her situation because she had also lost her husband and had 2 kids. So she actually put forth the funds to build this house for her, which was really awesome to see God's provision in that situation.
Another.
Yeah, they keep saying another church because that's what it was for us. One church after another. So Bryce, by the way, preached 1 sermon, thank goodness, or else it would have been 7 sermons for me instead of 6. So, but yeah, and there are always children everywhere you go.
This is when we went to one of the little villages where we saw like cobras, and that was really not my thing. So I was more interested in the kids, and I think that most of them haven't seen red hair before. So it was really interesting to see how much they wanted to come up to me and take pictures with me, and so it made me kind of feel like a celebrity. And I made a joke with the other people in our group that I felt like Kim Kardashian. And as we were leaving churches, all the kids would come up to the car and they'd stick their hands in the windows as I'm like going away, like it's like my paparazzi following me. So a lot of them, if they didn't know English, the word they did know was selfie, which I didn't expect. They knew the word selfie, so they would come up to you and say selfie, and they would all pull out their little Nokia phones and take pictures with us.
So this is Prince, and the person driving the motorcycle is Satish. And his job is he's a driver. And so we got to, he also called himself bodyguard, which was interesting. And so we got to spend and get to know Satish, and he was a really great guy, and we really appreciate him driving us around.
And he had been a teacher at the school at one time, so. Is this a playground that
Yeah,
you
this was at the
Okay, I'm
park.
We went to a park around their town, and it was really neat to see that. And then this is where we were playing a game. I learned it in camp, and so you hit each other's hands, and there's just like a little song you sing with it, and at the end it says you're out, and whoever's hand you hit when you say that, then they have to step out of the circle, and you just keep dwindling down until you have a winner. And so it was really neat to teach them that game, something that I grew up with, and now that's something that they'll get to grow up with. And we actually did that at the school too. And the girls asked me to write down the words to the song so that they could keep singing it. So it's really neat to know that I kind of started a tradition for them there.
Is this the playground?
Playground.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This was downtown Rajahmundry, down the main strip, and Ben said that they call this a small town, but walking down that, I felt like I was in downtown New York City. It was insane.
Yeah. We're on our way to, the ladies are going to purchase, I don't think you purchased saris, you purchased Punjabs,
yes.
Punjabis, right? And then the guys are about to go to a tailor to get shirts. Is Cole wearing his shirt?
Yeah, Cole's wearing
I'm on
his
a
shirt.
Way to go.
That's why he looks so fly.
Hand-tailored shirt for 15 American dollars. So, Okay,
All right.
so do you want to explain what this is all about?
So we actually got to visit a snake charmer that had cobras. In this very instance, we were quite nervous because I was thinking.
I was headed to the car if that snake did what I thought it was about to do.
So I was thinking, okay, they had mice, which you can see on the far right, and so I was thinking, okay, it can swallow that. But then they pull out the guinea pig, and I'm like, that guinea pig's pretty large. I wonder if it can swallow it. And so, you know, I'm watching, anticipating, and the snake, I don't know if it wasn't hungry or what, it just pecked the guinea pig, and the guinea pig's like, well, I'm gonna leave, and then it never got eaten, even though it could have. So
I didn't even remember it striking at the guinea pig.
It did, yeah.
at one time
close.
it like poked it.
That's when I left.
But I'll tell you, Prasad said to the students, now this was a mistake, I need to talk to him about this, but you don't mention snakes to students first. You mention snakes to the leader of the trip first. But he mentioned snakes. You all want to see some snakes? And of course they wanted to see snakes. So I told him to repeat to me 4 times that the snakes were poisonless. And he assured me they were, that they'd been defanged. And the poison had dried up. So we went to, there's a caste of Indian people that catch and charm snakes. That's what they do. And this man had 20 cobras in his house. And he brought them all out for us. And when a cobra is fanned out like that, you're in trouble. And so we thought, I was headed to the car if that thing started to eat a guinea pig. But he wasn't hungry. And then Rob said to this charmer, well, can we touch the snake? And of course he said yes. So then each student handled the snake. And at that point, it was a matter of courage versus cowardice. And I said, okay, I guess I'll hold the snake too. But anyway, that was a first-time experience for us. There is the guy that instigated the holding of the snake, actually holding the snake. And you can see that the snake charmer has got the head, which is the only reason I agreed to hold the rest of the snake. So, and there's John holding the snake.
What a man.
And the girls, now Tiffany, you didn't hold the snake, right? You just
I touched it, so
touched
I
it.
did my duty. And that was
Yeah,
my
that's Tiffany in
reaction
the
directly
background,
after
yeah.
touching it.
Okay. This is?
The beach at the Indian Ocean that we went to was a really cool experience to get to go to the ocean there. And the water was really warm, but the beach was very, very dirty with trash and
A lot of glass.
lots of glass you had to watch out for. It was, yeah, but it was still a really fun experience.
Yeah. I think the guys went swimming, and then they covered up. Would you say it's
Satish.
Because I heard them call him Hondo.
Yeah, that's his nickname.
So they're covering him up with this strange seaweed that you find in the Indian Ocean and sand.
Yeah.
So.
And the cool thing about that picture is that was actually Satish and Sagar's first time to the ocean. And that's one of the things that really put it into perspective for me, because I've been to the ocean many times. I've been to swimming in a pool countless times. And for them, like, they don't have the time or money to travel. And this is only like an hour and a half away from where they live to the ocean and experience that. And these two guys, who are both like 26, are running around giggling and laughing like kids because they're experiencing this for the first time, and it is just such a joyous occasion. And that was just really cool to experience that with them. But it was also kind of puts it in your mind of how blessed we are here in America. So.
And you put 11 white Americans on a beach, and all of a sudden you have a crowd of Indian people around you. So you can see them in the background all taking pictures of us. Okay, so this is the school that we told you about earlier. So why don't you all talk about the school experience when we were there?
School. The school was very cool. You walk in and they're all in a big line, and you go down they're in 2 lines, and you have to go down the middle of the aisle that they create to go to the school door. And as you're walking through there, they're throwing flower petals at you, and they're saying hello, hello, and nice to meet you. And that was amazing. And then all the kids seemed to be well behaved. I mean, when we were there, but they seemed like awesome kids and loved to be there and were learning.
And they're really sweet too. They addressed all of us as Miss, even John was Miss there. And my mom is a teacher in a public school, and so I got to like experience how public schools can be here in the States, and they can be very rough sometimes. And so to go there and to just see them thinking so high of us and that we were so above them, and they had to just call us Miss and like always address us, and they were so sweet to us and always said they were happy to meet us. It was really interesting to see how they value school versus how some kids here value school. And I came up with the idea to pass out letters to the students, and I was really nervous about not having enough for each kid. I really wanted each kid to be able to have their own letter of encouragement, and so I ended up getting over 450 letters just from friends and family and my church all writing letters. And so it was so neat to see how much the kids appreciated that, and I think that's something that they'll value for a long time, and so that was really great to be able to pass that out to them.
Yeah. And the cool thing was, like, one of the kids, we would get the letters, and then we would take time reading it to them in English. And some the older kids could read it themselves, so we would just listen to them read. But I had one kid, I was reading it to him, and then he just grabbed it and put it in his book bag, because he did that because he wanted to take it home, and he wanted to make sure he got to keep it. And so, like Tiffany said, it meant a lot to him. So
yeah, it was a great. That was basically Tiffany's idea, and she collected 400 letters that we took, and each child got a letter from a member of your church, mostly?
Yeah, and then my mom, since I said she was a teacher, we had her students write letters, so it was really neat that a lot of them were from kids going to kids, and so that was neat for even the students here in America to get to see what their school was like too.
Okay. And then this is what?
So here is a picture of some of the orphan kids. They get meals, which is something that they wouldn't get if they were back home with their parents or out on their own. So this is just an opportunity for them to get the physical nourishment that they need, as well as receiving that education that hopefully changes the trajectory of their life. So.
And this is me with one of the students. They asked me to even just pretend like I was teaching them for a picture, and so I got a really cool picture, but it was really neat just to see how much they really valued us being there, and they were so happy to talk to us all.
Each class wanted to recite a lesson for us, so we went from one classroom to the next.
And this was the game that I mentioned earlier, where you just go around the circle, and so the girls, we all played this with them, and they had so much fun. They had me write down the words so that they could sing it later, so they loved doing that game.
That's Jamal drinking a coconut. We got to have some fresh coconuts at the school, so they were pretty good.
Some people thought so. Some people.
I think the majority of the team. I think coconut water is an acquired taste, but it's supposedly good to settle your stomach. So, why don't we pause right there, and let me just ask if there are any questions that anybody in the audience has for the students you want to ask about the trip.
You said there was a delay to that one church. You were 3 hours late. What happened?
That was actually the one road that I was talking about earlier that
was the ramp we made.
Was getting redone, and yeah. I mean, you can tell me about that.
So there was a part of the road that they were doing construction on, and so part of the road was like a couple feet above the next level of the road. So they had to make this makeshift ramp so we could get down. So they grabbed a bunch of stones and tree limbs and everything, and we just like drove the cars down it. It was really cool.
Yeah, so that kind of delayed us a little bit. Building your own ramp so that you can go.
Doing the work for them.
Takes a while. So.
What spiritual results did you see? Growth, outreach, areas that have not been reached before, or additional people accepting the Lord?
I mean, like for us, a lot of the people there were either church members, but I do believe that I don't know what their typical attendance is, but I know some of the churches blare, like we talked about, blares noise, and you can actually hear like 100, 200 feet before we even drive up to the church. You can hear them worshiping and that sort of thing. So I believe, I don't know if this is true, but I believe the attendance is higher when we show. So I hope that what we're sharing and the opportunity we get to attract more people in just because of our where we come from and our skin color. Hopefully new people that hadn't attended that church came and got to hear God. But really, I don't know that we can really measure that. I don't know if anyone has a specific story.
Did anybody see a physical healing while you were praying for anybody? Okay.
So they don't go out and, like in Russia, they'll go out and they'll knock on doors, and when visiting missionaries come, they'll knock on doors and then invite them, and they'll get a lot of people who don't ordinarily go to church.
Yeah.
Do they do anything like that?
Well, like Bryce was saying, there's a speaker on top of all these churches, and the minute they hear an English or an American voice, people start flocking to the church building. And so that happened in most cases. But you know, the problem is we don't speak the language, so we weren't really able to assess what kind of impact the service was having on people. But I do know that Prasad has seen a lot of growth in his church, a lot of Hindu converts actually in his churches. Although you may have heard on the news, but the Indian government is becoming fairly repressive toward Christianity nationwide. I think it's an expression of Indian and Hindu nationalism. But we had to be really, really careful to make it clear that we weren't coming into the country to change people's religions necessarily. We were coming to show the love of Christ. But had we appeared that way to the customs officials, we would have never gotten into India. And we did have a little bit of a moment right when we were coming through customs. Everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden this man came up to me and said, "Where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you staying with? What does he do for a living?" And so I said, "Well, he's a pastor." And then I thought, oh great, now we won't get in. But the man said, "How long are you staying?" We said, "A week." And he said, "Okay." And that was the end of it. So, but just in the 9 years since we started going, it's gotten a lot more difficult to conduct Christian ministry in India than it was before. So, anybody else have a question? Bob?
I think it was the second trip our students made. They helped fund the building of a new church. How's that church doing?
Yeah, so that church was actually the one that I got the opportunity to preach at, which was really neat, and great attendance. It was during testing time, so it was during a time where a lot of the younger kids weren't able to be there because we went there in the morning, and that they have big tests that they have to take. They're state tests. They're kind of like our standardized testing. So the church wasn't as full as it was 3 years ago, just because of the amount of kids that were there. But there was still a good amount of people there, and it seems to be doing well. And it was really neat to get to see the pastor again, which the pastor had remembered you, right, and had asked if you had lost weight.
Yeah, the pastor was
at
worried.
church.
I didn't mention this, Melissa, but the pastor, I hadn't seen the pastor in 3 years, and he told Prasad in Telugu, so I didn't know what they were talking about, that he was worried about me because I had lost so much weight. So, it's funny that he noticed, because people around here, there are some people that see me every day that haven't noticed, and he hadn't seen me in 3 years. So yeah,
that was really cool.
But yeah, We always go to this church in Pendapeta because we were the ones that helped to build the building. And I thought I asked Bryce to preach at this service because I thought it wouldn't be meaningful to have a student actually preach in the church that had been built by the efforts of our students. So, anybody else? Why don't we end? It's about time to stop. Tiffany had to go to work, so we've lost Tiffany, but the three remaining guys, why don't you just talk for a minute or so about what was the highlight for the trip for you and what you will remember 10 years from now?
I will never forget going to the school and just walking down the aisle of those kids and all of them just being so happy to see us and shaking literally every single one of their hands, and just the joy that I got from that was amazing. I could tell they were just really delighted to see us, and that's something I'll never forget.
I think probably for me, it's the relationships and friendships that I made while I was there. I became really close with Sagar and a few of the kids, and they're just all great people, and hopefully in the near future I'll be able to go see them again. But.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with John. It's definitely really impactful to get to build relationships with people that are so diversely and different than you culturally and everything. Their daily life is so different. It's just really something new and special to also see their relationship with God and the fact that they're halfway around the world right now and they're worshiping, praising Him, and advancing His kingdom just like we are doing here right now. It's just really something that I value so much, and those relationships that I've made, I really want to continue and hopefully return again for a third time.
So we do these trips every spring break at IPFW, which is normally the first week in March. And I can even announce now that next year it's our turn to go back to Northern Ireland for what will be our 5th visit to work with a ministry called Adventure Leadership Training. If some of you might remember that Pamela and Desi Fisher did the University Religious Forum in October, I think it was October when they were here last year, and described their ministry. You can actually go back and on the University Religious Forum YouTube channel and watch that show. But if there are any students watching and you want to start praying about going with us to Northern Ireland next March, then I would encourage you to do that. And I also want to say, if you're watching and you're not a student at IPFW, that doesn't mean you can't go with us, because we take non-students all the time as well. So again, if you're interested in that trip or any other aspect of campus ministry, just email us at ministry@ipfw.edu. I want to thank everybody that was here with us in person today for joining us. Thank you for watching this show, if you've been watching it on College Cable Access. And I hope you'll tune in again for the University Religious Forum in April. Have a great day.
Les personnages dans mes tableaux